Hi. Today I'd like to talk about making a modal dialog box. So this is a common interface element that you'll see in a lot of places, and you can use it for a lot of things. In this example here, I have 3 links, and if you click on a link, it displays a dialog box with a close button. And it kind of grays out the screen here. So essentially, this area is just covered by a large div that takes up the whole screen, and it's partially transparent, right? And if you click on this button, this could be anything, right? And if you click on this link, it closes the box. Okay? So it's a pretty simple example. So let's get started, right? I built this with Bootstrap. Or no, I think I didn't use Bootstrap. I used, I don't know, I forget, one of those, boilerplate, that's it, right? So so here's my boilerplate folder right there, and I've got it all opened in brackets here. And, just as a note, if you're in brackets, you can drag a whole folder on top of brackets, and it'll open up, all of the files in the sidebar here. Okay, so most of this example happens in our style sheet. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to delete all of this style stuff, and then I'm going to save that file, and then I'll go into main.js, and I'll just delete everything here, and we'll just start from scratch. And let's save it, and then we'll go into index.html, and let me delete not everything, but just the stuff here that we're going to recreate. So so here we go, right? Maybe I'll delete everything here, and then we'll look at main. So here's my main div, and so we'll even just rewrite this too. Okay, so here we are, and our page is empty. So in main, just to get started, I want to make a list of links. So I'll create a UL and an li tag with an anchor. And we'll give this anchor a name here. And we'll say, hello dialog. Okay, and that'll be our first dialog box. And then below here, what I want to do is I want to use this link right here to open a dialog box. And what I'll do is I'll create my dialog boxes at the bottom of the page, and there'll be a div, and we can put this outside of main. Okay, so it's going to be outside of, imagine that main is containing the content of our page, and this is outside the content. Okay, so it'll be not a part of this content and hidden most of the time. Okay, and we'll give this a name here, an ID. Let's just call it hello. And for the href on the link, and you can do this a lot of ways, I'm going to make the href match the ID name of the div down here. So clicking this is going to open this element, the element with this ID anyway, right? Okay, so there we go. So far, we have this, right? There's nothing happens really. Okay, so let's get our dialog box, and what I'm going to do just to get started is I'm going to create the dialog box filling the entire screen. Okay, and just so we can see the style of it and make sure that it functions correctly, right? And then we'll hide it, and then we'll activate it with the link. Okay, so first things, let's put a div on the outside, and this div will have the color on it. Okay, that is that'll gray out the background. So essentially, it'll be like a black 50% transparent or something, right? And then inside here, we'll make another div, and this div is going to be the message box that we see in the middle of the screen. Okay, so let's give this, if we wanted to use multiple dialog boxes, we might want to share the styles across them. So maybe I'll give this this outer div a class name. I'll call it Modal dialog or something like that. And then this inner one, we'll give it a class name. We'll call it, message box or something, right? And then you could put anything you want in here for a message. Maybe we'll do an H1 hello, right? And that'll be my message. And then maybe we need a link in here too. We'll do we'll use this to close the box later. And we'll just put a, this could actually just be anything, right? And then this will be close. Okay, so now we've got our dialog box there. And it won't look like much now because it doesn't have any styles, right? So let's take a look, right? Oh, there we go. So this is going to be the dialog box. Okay, so now let's go to our style sheet. And since I'm using boilerplate, they've got a lot of extra styles here. And this is author's custom style, so we'll put our styles in the middle here. And what we want to do is we want to set up our modal dialog box so it covers the entire screen. So the first thing we need to do is we need to make sure that the HTML and the body tag will support something that can go full screen. Okay. Now normally, block elements expand to fill their container, so they're 100% width normally, and the body tag is 100% width in the browser window. The problem is the height. So the body tag normally, even though the browser window might open up taller than the content, the body really is only as tall as the content is. So if we tried to create a dialog box to fill the screen, it would just, come down to about here, right? It wouldn't go all the way to the bottom. So in order for the body to expand to fill the entire page, we have to set the height to 100%. And that goes for the HTML tag too. Okay, so both of these need to be 100% height. Okay, so now with that, now we can create something that fills the entire screen. So remember, we have that other element there called Modal Dialog, right? Or it's a class name, Modal Dialog. Okay, so we'll give this a, how about a position of absolute and a left of 0 and a top of 0. So, it's absolute position. The left edge will be left of the browser. It'll be flush to the left edge of the browser, and the top will be flush to the top edge of the browser. And then let's give it a width of 100%, and now it's as wide as the browser, and a height of 100%, and now it's as tall as the browser, and our body, or I should say as tall as the body tag, and our body tag is now as tall as the browser window. Okay? So in order for us to see it, pardon me, in order for us to see it, we'll have to also give it some kind of color or something. So let's give it a background color, and in this case, I'll use an RGBA color. So this is, red, green, blue, and alpha. And maybe I'll do it as black with an alpha of, it could be, let's make it, 40%. Okay? So let's take a look. So now we see our gray area is covering the entire screen, right? And notice there's something important here. You have to imagine this gray area is a box. It's a div, and it's a layer sitting in front of the other main div, okay? And that main div contains this link, and you'll notice when the one div is in front of the other one, you can't click on the element underneath it. Okay, I can click on this because it's inside the modal dialog div, which is in front of everything. But I can't click on this one, and that's important because sometimes that can happen, and if without the color here, this would look just like it did, when nothing was covering it, right? Because this would be transparent, but we still wouldn't be able to click on it. And that's a problem that can crop up every once in a while that, if you understand how that works, you can spot that problem, or you get this mysterious link that you can't click on, right? But anyway, this is going to work in our advantage because a modal dialog box shouldn't allow us to click on things behind it, right? So as long as the modal is up, you'll have to, click close or answer a question in the dialog box before you can, click another link and go on to something else, okay? So here we are, we've got our box. So now let's make a colored box to sit in the middle of the screen containing the message and the close link, right? So that one is, what did I call that again? Oh yeah, that was message box. So let's style message box. So let's say message box, you are going to have a position of absolute. And then let's give it a width of, you can do anything for the width. Let's call it a width of, 240 pixels, right? And we'll give it a height of 240 pixels. And then let's give it a border radius of, 24 pixels. Right, and a background color of, it could be any color, right? Make it a light gray, and let's see what it looks like. Oh, so there's our box right there. So now, it's absolute position, so how do we move it to the middle? Okay, so what we'll do is we'll give it a left of, we can give it a left of, 50%, right? And a top of 50%, right? And this only works, the left and top setting, those only works because we've used position absolute, right? So let's actually move this maybe up here just to recognize that these work together. Okay, so we'll save that, and we'll see that that we've got the box in the middle, but actually, the upper left corner, right, it's the left edge that's 50% across, and the top edge that's 50%, right? So this is actually the center. So I need to move this half the width of the box and half the height of the box. And there's a couple tricks to doing this. I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to use calc, right? And calc lets you do math in CSS, okay? So I'll just get started like this, right? And calc, the beauty of calc is that, it lets you do a little bit of simple math in your style sheet. And you can also, when you're doing the math, you can mix units, and that's kind of the beauty of calc. So here I have, the left of 50%, so that's 50% the width of the browser, but then I can subtract half the width of my box, which happens to be 240. So I'll subtract 120 pixels, right? So here I'm subtracting pixels from percent, right? And then if I subtract 120 pixels from the height also, or from the 50% top position, right? Then that'll move us up into the center, right? So let's save that, and we'll test it again here. Oh, and there we go, and that's right in the middle. And if I change the size, you can see that that it stays in the center. Okay, so that's doing pretty good. And then we could apply some styles to this text, maybe to center it on the page, or maybe put this in a button up in the corner or something with an X in it. Or you could do a lot of different styles here, right? But let's just get the dialog box working and the close, the open button and the close button working. Okay. So let's see here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into our JavaScript here. So I'll go into my main.js, and again I'm using the boilerplate, so it sets up main.js and it imports it in index, so I don't have to do that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide the dialog box. So remember, our dialog box is called Modal Dialog box. So all, if we had more than one dialog box, we could hide them all this way. So we'll say modal dialog dot hide. And then let's test it. Oh, look, so no modal dialog. And now that it's not in front of the button, you know, our link is working. So let's add a click action to the link. So we'll say, what do we have there? Let me actually, let's actually give that a class name. Why don't we give this, we could just, you know, use some selector, you know, like A or something to select it, but that probably won't be practical in a regular project. Why don't we give this a name? Why don't we say class, you know, open modal. How about that, right? So all the links that are open modal can use this. And then what we'll do is we'll use the href to identify the dialog box that we want to open, okay? So let's see here. We'll do, we'll go back to main.js, and we'll say open modal dot click, and then we'll give the click a function, and we want to use the event object here. Okay, so we got to have the event object here because we'll want to prevent any default behavior from that link, because we're going to handle the behavior of the link through JavaScript. In our case, it won't really do anything, but in another project, it might cause some trouble. So we'll put that in there just to make sure that we don't have any trouble. So the next step, what we want to do is we want to you know, show the dialog box. And we're going to show the dialog box that's identified by the href value, right? So let's go get that. And what I want to do is I want to get the href here, which in our case will be this dot attribute. And the attribute is href, right? So using jQuery, we can select the current element. That's the link you clicked on, this. And then attr gives us the attribute. And if we name an attribute, attr will return the value of that attribute. So if the href attribute, you know, says, you know, hash, you know, hello, right? Then that's what's going to be in this href variable. So then what we'll do is we'll select that that element, right? And we'll say dot, you know, show. So we'll save this, right? And then refresh our page. And then I click, and then here's my dialog box. So that's pretty simple. And we can handle this a lot of different ways, but that's, you know, kind of the basic thing. And then how do we close it, right? So let's do that next. So looking at the index.html, our close button has, you know, this close, you know, in the href here, and that's okay. And we could actually use this as a selector, but what I think would be better just to follow the same, you know, kind of system that we had up here. Why don't we just make it a class name, and we'll call it close modal, right? So we'll say close modal, and that will close, you know, the modal dialog box, right? So let's do this. Let's just paste that in there and name it close modal, right? And then let's go back to our main JavaScript here. And then we'll add a click action. Oops. To the close button, right? And if we made more than one dialog box, then it could just have the same name, and we could close that one too, right? And we'll add the event object here, and again we'll, you know, prevent the default behavior from that link. And then now we want to close the dialog box, and there's a couple ways we can do this. We'll just do it simple here, so we can just say everybody that's a modal dialog can hide. You should only have one modal showing, and just doing this hides them all, which is, I think it's okay, because you should only have one showing anyway, and the rest should be hidden. So, and there you go. Let's give it a try. So we'll save this and refresh our page here, and then I'll click here and our dialog shows, and now I'll click the link and it goes away, right? And then while it's open, everything is grayed out in the background, and we can't, you know, click on anything through there, right, until we close it. And, you know, the dialog here could also include, you know, form elements or other buttons, or, you know, all sorts of things. And we could animate the transition or other process too, but this just gives our basic idea, right? Okay, so thanks for watching. I hope that's helpful to someone, and see you later.